I can still hear my father's voice echoing across the dining room. Too loud. Too sharp. Everyone went quiet for half a second. Then someone laughed. Then another. Plates clinked. My cheeks felt like they were on fire. I stared at the pattern on the tablecloth, the little blue flowers, and waited for it to stop. It didn't. He stood there, arms crossed, saying I was grounded until I apologized. I remember nodding once and saying, "All right." My voice didn't sound like mine. It sounded smaller. Nobody asked if I was okay. Nobody stopped him. The clock ticked behind me. After that night, things went back to what they always were, which was never really normal. My father liked rules that shifted depending on who you were. For my brother, rules bent. For me, they hardened. He was the younger one, the funny one, the one who needed protecting. I was the one who should know better. That was the phrase. You should know better. Growing up, my dad wasn't loud all the time. That's the part people miss. He could be charming. At church, at barbecues, at work events, he'd put a hand on my shoulder and introduce me as his smart daughter. He liked that word. Smart. It sounded useful. At home, smart meant silent. It meant don't push back. It meant smooth things over when your brother messed up. The apology thing wasn't new. I'd apologized my whole life for things that weren't mine. If my brother borrowed my car and scratched it, I was told I shouldn't have made a big deal. If he forgot my birthday, I was told not to be sensitive. If I said no to covering for him, Dad would sigh like I'd disappointed him personally. That dinner just made it public. That was the difference. The grounding was ridiculous. I was 24. I paid my phone bill. I worked full-time. Still, when he said it, part of me reacted like I was 16 again. I felt that old pressure in my chest. The one that says comply now. Think later. After everyone left, my aunt hugged me in the hallway and whispered, "You know how he is." She meant it kindly. It still landed wrong. Knowing how he was had never helped me before. That night, I sat on my bed with my shoes still on. My room smelled like the lavender spray I used on my pillows. I stared at the wall where I'd taped old concert tickets and notes from friends. I kept replaying the laugh. Not his. The others. The way no one looked uncomfortable enough to stop it. I didn't cry. That surprised me. I felt tired instead. Heavy. Like something had finally settled into place. I remember thinking, maybe this isn't about an apology at all. Maybe it never was. I thought about my brother's face at the table, the way he didn't look at me, just kept eating. He knew what was happening. He always did. He benefited from it. I wondered if he ever felt bad. I honestly couldn't tell. Dad liked to say families stick together, but what he meant was we protect the loudest person in the room. That night, lying there, I understood something quietly. I wasn't grounded. I was being trained. Trained to shrink. Trained to apologize for existing. And for the first time, that training didn't work. It slid off me. I didn't know what I'd do yet. I just knew I wouldn't apologize. Not then. Not tomorrow. Not for him. Not for anyone ever again there. By the next morning, the pattern felt obvious, like seeing a crack after the glass finally breaks. I thought back over years of moments I'd brushed off. The time my brother borrowed money from my savings account when we were teenagers, and Dad told me to let it go because family doesn't keep score. The time my promotion dinner got canceled because my brother had a bad day at work, and somehow that mattered more. Even the small things, like Dad always calling me by my brother's name first, then correcting himself with a laugh. None of it had seemed huge on its own. That's how it worked. Each cut was shallow. Together, they bled. I remembered standing in the kitchen once, dishes half-washed, listening to my father tell my brother, "She'll understand." He didn't ask me. He never did. Understanding was assigned to me, like a chore. What bothered me most wasn't that my brother took advantage. It was that my father made space for it. He smoothed every consequence away for him, then handed me the emotional bill. When I finally spoke up, years ago, Dad had said, "Why are you making this difficult?" I'd apologized that night too. I didn't even know what for. After the dinner, my phone buzzed with messages. Cousins joking. An uncle sending a thumbs-up emoji. One text from my brother that just said, "Relax." I stared at it until the screen went dark. Relax meant forget it. It meant keep your place. I realized then how predictable everything was. He would never apologize. Dad would never admit he'd crossed a line. The family would keep laughing as long as the noise wasn't aimed at them. Sitting on the edge of my bed, I felt something steady replace the embarrassment. Clarity, maybe. Or resignation. I wasn't unlucky. I wasn't misunderstood. I was convenient. And convenience doesn't get defended. It gets used, then asked to smile about it. Once I saw that, I couldn't unsee it. The past lined up neatly, like evidence I'd ignored because facing it felt worse. Now it felt unavoidable. I sat there longer than I meant to, listening to the house settle. Pipes clicking. A door closing somewhere. I thought about how quiet it would be if I stopped filling the gaps. The idea scared me. It also felt honest. That was new for me. Then silence. The boundary got crossed the next morning, quietly, like everything else in that house. I woke up to my father standing in my doorway. He didn't knock. He never did. He leaned against the frame and looked around my room like it belonged to him. His eyes landed on my suitcase, half-packed, clothes folded neatly on the bed. "So," he said, casual, almost amused. "You're really doing this?" I didn't answer right away. I was tying my shoes. My hands were steady, which surprised me. He took my silence as permission and kept talking. "You know all this goes away if you just say sorry," he added. This drama. This attitude. There it was. Not a request. A transaction. Apologize, and you can stay. Keep quiet, and you can belong. I finally looked up at him. He was smiling, the same smile he used when he thought he was being reasonable. I realized then, he wasn't worried about losing me. He was annoyed I wasn't cooperating. "What about him?" I asked. My voice sounded flat. "Does he ever have to apologize?" Dad's smile tightened. "Don't start," he said. "This isn't the time." It never was. That was the boundary. Not the grounding. Not the dinner. This. The assumption that I would always be the one to bend. I felt something shut off inside me. Not anger. Not sadness. Just a click. Like a door closing. I finished lacing my shoes. He watched me like I was bluffing. "You're being dramatic," he said, softer now. "Where would you even go?" I thought about telling him. About the lease I'd signed weeks ago. About the savings account he didn't know about. About how long I'd been preparing without admitting it to myself. I didn't say any of that. I shook my head once. "I'm not apologizing," I said. That was it. He straightened, clearly irritated. "Then you can't expect support," he replied, like he was laying down a rule. I nodded. It felt strange how calm I was. The room looked different already, like it wasn't mine anymore. The posters, the books, the little lamp on my desk. I took what fit in the suitcase and left the rest. When I walked past him, he didn't move. He just said, "You'll regret this." Maybe I did, briefly, when I reached the front door and heard my brother laughing somewhere upstairs. But regret passed quickly. What stayed was relief. I wasn't asking to belong anymore. I wasn't waiting to be chosen. I was done negotiating my worth. I left before anyone else woke up. The sky was still gray, that early morning color that makes everything look unfinished. My suitcase wheels rattled softly down the driveway. I didn't look back at the house. I already knew what it looked like. I'd memorized it from the inside. What I didn't announce was that I'd already spoken to a lawyer. Not to threaten anyone. Just to protect myself. My father liked control, and control gets messy when it's challenged. A week after I moved out, he went into my room looking for something he could use. That's when he noticed it. The drawers empty. The closet bare. The little lockbox gone. He called me 3 times. I didn't answer. 2 days later, the family lawyer showed up at the house unannounced. I wasn't there, but I heard the story later. My dad had assumed everything in that room belonged to him. The lawyer explained, calmly, that it didn't. My savings. My documents. The trust my grandmother had set up quietly years ago, naming me directly. Dad hadn't known. He'd never asked. He'd never needed to. Apparently his voice rose. Apparently, he demanded to know why no one told him. The lawyer reminded him that no permission was required. That part made me smile when I heard it. The fallout wasn't loud. That was the strange part. No shouting matches. No dramatic calls. Just tension. My brother stopped texting. My aunt unfollowed me. Dad left a voicemail once, telling me I'd embarrassed him. I deleted it without listening to the end. The consequences unfolded on their own, without me saying a word. In my new place, the walls were thin, and the kitchen light flickered. I ate dinner on the floor the first week, back against the couch, listening to traffic outside. The quiet felt different here. It wasn't heavy. It didn't ask anything of me. Sometimes I thought about that dinner table. The laughter. My father's voice. The way I said, "All right," just to survive the moment. I don't replay it as much anymore. It doesn't sting the way it used to. Last night, I unpacked the last box. I found an old mug chipped along the rim. I filled it with tea and sat by the window. The city hummed below. I drank slowly. It tasted like peace.